Fireplace hung one thing, a dusty photograph in a wooden frame. 2 children, a woman. One gray morning, there was a knock at the door. Soft, almost like the wind pretending to be a person. He opened it slowly. A child stood there, maybe 9 or 10. Dirty hands. Eyes full of questions. She held out a candle. Small, used, burnt down halfway. She said, "Greater than I think you forgot this," then turned and walked away. He stood there, candle in hand, watching her disappear into the field. No explanation, no demand, just that sentence. He closed the door, looked at the candle, and placed it gently beside the fireplace. But he didn't light it. Not yet. That night felt colder than others. He sat in his chair, same way, same silence. He woke up before dawn, as always. But something was different. There was ash on the floor. That night, he sat again. 2 candles now. The flame was weak, quiet, but warm. Not on the skin, not in the room, but inside. It flickered. He didn't speak a word, but his eyes softened. His hands relaxed, lit the second candle slowly, placed it at the edge of the table. Outside the window, fog crept slowly across the grass. The man sat in the chair, a candle beside him, another in the corner, no expression on his face. Years later, someone found the house. It was nearly empty, but 2 burnt candles sat on the table. There was a knock at the door. He lived alone in a small wooden house. But he wasn't always alone. But most times she brought candles, different ones, new ones, tall ones, thin ones, red ones, blue ones. Then one day she stopped coming, so he got up, he went to the field, where the grass hadn't moved in years. He walked until he found her, called out to her, but she didn't hear. She didn't turn around. She was somewhere else. He sat down beside her. Silence. He didn't know what to say. He didn't move. He just kept watching her. She finally turned to him. Her eyes were wet. And she whispered, "Greater than you don't understand, do you?" He shook his head. "I don't," she said. "Greater than this isn't about candles, is it?" He looked at the extinguished flame in his hand, thought about the empty chair in his house, about the cold hearth. He closed his eyes, let the wind blow through his hair. Once upon a time, or rather, once upon a wait, there was a house that stood on a hill that no one climbed anymore. It wasn't haunted. It wasn't special. It just ... existed. The wood had stopped creaking because there was no one left to walk on the floor. The windows were so dusty they turned sunlight into gray. Curtains hung crooked, one side torn. Not by wind, not by mice. Just by time. Time does that. Quietly. People forgot about the house. It didn't complain. It didn't cry out. It simply waited. But the house had nothing to say, and so the man said nothing back. He stayed that way until morning. For what? No one knew. Maybe someone, maybe light, maybe sound. And then one day, one evening, an evening without stars, a man arrived. He wasn't young, wasn't old, but it came from inside. The man stood quickly, too quickly. His body wasn't used to movement anymore. He searched the house. His voice sounded out of place, like a stranger in his own mouth, but once said he couldn't unsay it. He sat down and stared at the fireplace. It's hard to remember the sound of someone laughing. Room to room, nothing, just silence, stillness, and the candle almost looked like it had turned ever so slightly. On the 14th night, the wind found the house. It slipped through the cracks beneath the door, whistled past the walls, tapped the window once. He placed it on the floor in front of him, lit no fire, just watched it, like someone waiting for it to say something first. Just small phrases. I thought I'd never come back. And on the final night, the man sat and watched it until the wick disappeared into the melted base. The room was dark again, but not empty. She used to sit right here, this crack in the wall. It was always there. We never finished that book. Opened the door and left. He didn't take the chair, didn't take the books, didn't take the candle stub. He left them there. Right. Whoever finds this place, if you're like me, you're looking for something you lost. If you're not like me, you're looking for something you never had. Either way, you won't find it here. You'll find it within. This is a house of beginnings, not endings. Light your own damn candle. For the house. For the silence. For whoever came next. I was scared the light wouldn't feel like home anymore, then left. But it had knocked over a cup. That small, broken sound made the man flinch. It wasn't fear. It was memory. For just 1 second, it reminded him of a time when sounds didn't mean danger. They meant life. A hand that didn't tremble anymore, and a flame that rose, small, shy, alive. The candle did not flicker. It stood still, like it too had waited a long time to be seen, a little melted on one side. Dust clung to its base like it was afraid of being forgotten. Sometimes the man would reach toward it, then stop. Why? Even he didn't know. Maybe because once you light a candle, it's no longer perfect. It begins dying the moment it begins glowing. Some things are easier to imagine than to live through. Touched the bookshelf, showed titles long unread. The Art of Stillness, Flames of the Forgotten, Waiting Rooms of the Soul. It glowed against the dusty walls. The man whispered, "I remember this color," smiling in front of a warm fire, holding a blanket, laughing at something he couldn't remember. He woke with tears on his cheek, but didn't wipe them, let them dry slowly like wax. He wore boots that had walked too far, and a coat that smelled like ash and silence. He had no name, or maybe he did. But no one called it anymore. In his hand he carried an old lantern. It wasn't lit, just like him. He tore a piece of stale bread from a bag he'd brought with him, stared out the window, where fog settled every morning and never left completely. At night, he sat beside the candle again, still unlit, still untouched. He stood at the door for a while, then opened it slowly. No one had locked it. No one ever would. The door didn't resist. There was a fireplace, cold, and beside it, a small shelf, a dead plant, a single candle. The wick was untouched, swung inward, with the kind of groan that only emptiness makes. He stepped in. There was dust, there was a broken chair, a table with one leg shorter than the rest, books with titles no one could read anymore. He didn't light the candle. He sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, eyes open, but not seeing, listening. Each day he woke with no alarm, because there was no need for time in a place like this. He drank from a cracked cup. Days felt like years. The candle burned, shorter and shorter. Then one day, the 12th day, something happened. Sound soft, hypotite, like a laugh, or maybe the wind. He spoke for the first time, not to anyone, just to the room. It used to be warm here. Days passed, the candle burned, lower and lower. That same night, he finally picked up the candle, held it in both hands. It was colder than he expected. That night, he dreamed of a face he hadn't seen in decades. The candle burned shorter and shorter. The 21st night, he lit the candle. No ceremony, no words, just a match. The light changed things. Every night now, he lit the candle. Every night, he spoke. Not full conversations. The candle burned, shorter and shorter. It took 7 nights to reach the end. The flame grew smaller, gentler, like it knew it was time. In the morning, the man stood, stretched side, on the back of the dusty photo frame above the fireplace. He scratched a message with the end of a burnt matchstick. "So we have a village where everyone stops talking." Why, well, they do undo it because they re-afraid to talk, or they re-too sad to talk, or they re-angry about something. It's nothing like that. It's actually more like a slow fade. You know, you start paying less attention to things. You stop caring about certain things. Words are losing their importance in the village. It starts with small things. It starts with the greetings. He explored every corner of the village, climbed every tree, ran through every field. He talked to animals. He greeted the wind. He asked the clouds what stories they carried. It was a shared silence. A silence between two souls who understood that sometimes silence can be the loudest thing in the world. After that day, the boy visited the lamp every day. He would sit near it, leaning against the wall, watching the sun rise and set. He didn't know why the lamp hadn't lit up yet. Suddenly a voice broke the quiet, a shaky, unfamiliar sound. Did it really work? The boy looked up to see a young girl standing on a nearby rooftop. I couldn't see anything from my window. Did I miss it? Wrinkled face crinkled into a smile, the first genuine smile he had ever seen on her face.
Come,
she said, her voice raspy but strong. I'll show you something. But he felt a responsibility towards it, almost like it was his duty to keep it going. It's still there, he said, his voice hoarse from disuse. You should come see it. What? He exclaimed, scrambling to his feet. But how? He didn't ask anyone why the lamp was there or why it had stopped working. The boy watched her approach, a sense of anticipation building inside him. But he left the matchbox by the lamp and a circle drawn in ash, nothing more. Yes, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, I did. The other woman said nothing, but she smiled, and the silence shifted again. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Light said what words forgot. He had no idea how many people had stopped believing in the lamp, but now there was one less. The girl looked confused, but followed obediently. The woman reached out and knocked on the door. The sound echoed in the suddenly lively street. And one afternoon, the woman in the yellow shawl whispered, "Thank you." No one heard it except the flame, and that was enough. Once he just took it as a fact of life, like the sky or the trees. He just accepted it. He was the only one in the village who still did these things. It had been there for years. People had stopped noticing it. The woman noticed it every day, but she never touched it. Now the boy did. He knelt and picked it up and shook it gently. It was the first time anyone had lit the lamp in decades. As the fire caught, he closed his eyes and listened. That's when he heard it. The soft creak of a window opening. He didn't understand everything that was happening, but he could feel the change in the air. The silence was no longer heavy. It was just there, holding warmth. He opened his eyes to see a head poking out from an upstairs window. Only once, but it was enough to make a child laugh quietly, almost nervously. Then another dog barked, and then another until the whole village was filled with the sound of barking dogs. The boy looked around, a wide grin spreading across his face. The face was wrinkled, hair wispy, but there was a sparkle in the eye. The old woman in the yellow shawl. She was smiling. It was a faint rattling sound. Matches, still inside, still waiting. People just stopped saying hello to each other, waving to each other. He reached up, he was barely tall enough, and touched the cold glass. Nothing happened. He turned to the woman in the yellow shawl and smiled. She didn't smile back, but something in her face softened. Not joy, not sadness, just a crack in the stillness. Then the laughter, right? People stop laughing. Jokes aren't funny anymore. Even the goodbyes fade away. Nobody really says goodbye to anybody. People just go about their lives. And after many years, the streets are lined with silent footsteps. He opened the glass door, placed one match against the rough side, and struck it. Nothing. Second match. A spark. The flame caught. It was small and unsure at first, but alive. It flickered, then held. The iron lamp glowed. It wasn't bright, but enough. Just enough to cast shadows. Enough to wake something. Shops open and close without a sound. Even the dogs don't bark anymore. So the village is not dead, but it is just quiet. In the center of all of this stands an old iron lamp that has been standing there for many decades. People pass by it every day. They look at it, sometimes, but nobody touches it. Nobody knows who lit it last. Nobody knows why it went out. It has just become part of the background, like the cracks in the road, the faded doors, the sky that always looks tired. And there was an old woman who lived in the village. She wore a yellow shawl. It was soft at the edges and older than most roofs in the village. The shawl was like her, soft and old. The woman didn't talk either, not because she had nothing to say, but because when no one listens, your voice becomes a burden. She spent her days sitting on a bench across from the iron lamp. She would bring a cup of tea with her and hold it with both hands and stare at the unlit flame. She had done this for so long that the bench had become a second skin. The wood had become soft under her touch, and the paint had worn away, revealing the raw wood underneath. The woman's silence was comfortable, like an old sweater. It wasn't heavy. She didn't seem burdened by it. Then one day a young boy arrived in the village. No one noticed when he came. One day he was just there sitting near the bakery, drawing circles in the dirt, watching people walk by. He, too, was comfortable in his silence. He didn't speak, but his silence wasn't heavy either. It was curious. He looked at everything like it still had a story to tell, even if it didn't. like the old lamp or the faded walls. For the boy, everything was new. One day the boy walked up to the iron lamp. For a moment, the silence wasn't just silence. One day the boy noticed a box behind the bench where the woman usually sat. That night, the boy returned to the lamp. As the lamp lit up, the boy leaned back against the wall, a smile on his face. Suddenly, more windows opened one by one. Heads leaned out. They weren't speaking, not calling, just watching. Their faces weren't surprised. They were remembering. The boy smiled and nodded. The girl hesitated, then scrambled down the wall and ran towards the lamp. She led the girl to a small house on the opposite side of the street from the lamp. Inside the house, a man stirred. He looked up from his book, his eyes filled with surprise. The woman smiled. "You lit it, didn't you?" she asked softly. The man's eyes widened. The woman placed a hand on his arm. "It's all right," she said. "It's all right now." Outside, the boy stood mesmerized, watching the house. A dog barked in the distance. He didn't stay in the village for long. The next morning, he was gone. The following evening, 2 women sat by the lamp. One spoke a single sentence. "I used to light this when I was little." The lamp never went out again. People brought candles from home and lit them from its flame. Over time, names returned. Children began saying Mama and Baba again. Shopkeepers began nodding with intention. The baker began humming quietly in the morning. Once upon a time, there was a room with only one window. Glass was scratched. The frame was crooked, and behind the curtain, dust floated like tired memories. No one had looked out that window in years. Marks on the table where the sun used to hit, and a thin, untouched wick that leaned ever so slightly left. Like it, too, had grown tired of waiting. But a candle sat on the table beneath it. It faced the window. Always, the woman with the scarf stopped beneath a nearby tree. She turned her head, only slightly, but enough. Enough to look toward the window. Same path, same pace, same faded green scarf. She never looked up, never noticed the room. Never noticed the candle. She just walked from the market to nowhere, from nowhere back again. The candle's position, it had not been moved in a long time. There were rings of dust around its base. That candle, her mother's. She had left when she was 17 and never returned, till now. This time, she placed her hand on the glass. Inside, nothing moved. Outside, her eyes softened, worn but dry. She struck the first. It broke. She struck the second. It sparked, then died. She waited, then struck the third. Held. She didn't light the candle. She just looked at it. Flickered, then settled. The room didn't change. Didn't become beautiful. Didn't warm up. But it felt right, watching the flame. Sometimes crying, sometimes smiling, but mostly just breathing. As if the air had been stuck in her chest for 20 years. Now finally it moved. Like something had been answered. Remembered a night years ago when her mother had said, "Candles don't need to burn every night. Some just need to wait for the right one." She hadn't understood it then. She did now. We'd love it if you gave us a listen. We put so much love into this project and are so excited to share it with you. Don't forget you matter. And remember, even if it gets dark, the sun will rise again. Take care. You can find it online or in a physical store near you. And in the glass of the window, her reflection faded beside the glow. You're going to be something big or small. So I have a question for you. What is something you have unthought about in a long time that suddenly popped into your mind today? Share it in the comments. But because the table beneath it always had a candle, once a week, someone lit it, for no reason at all. For the first time in 20 years, she opened the door. Outside the window, the same woman walked by every day. If candles could think, this one might have thought, I was never waiting to be used. I was waiting to be remembered. The house belonged to no one, but no one had claimed it either. She didn't step forward, didn't move closer. But for 3 full seconds, her eyes met the glass, and the candle, still unlit. Still waiting. Dude. But in those seconds, it was seen. The smoke curled like an old memory returning to its shelf. She didn't say goodbye, didn't take anything, didn't write a note. She simply left. People said, "It's just an old house. It smells like books. No one goes inside." But the candle didn't care. The candle did not need visitors. It only needed one moment. One rainy afternoon. One day the rain came. Slow at first, then heavy. The floor creaked under her step. She didn't speak. She didn't look around. She walked directly to the candle, sat down in the same chair she used to sit in when she was someone else. The way stillness does, the way furniture sighs, the way air feels heavier in places where grief sat too long. Eyes met the glass. Memory inside the room. The woman left. Rain soaking her scarf, but the candle remembered, not the way people remember. The return. A week passed, then another. Then one morning she came again, stopped outside that same window. Dust and quiet. The room smelled like dust and rain, the memory that lingered. This was her childhood home. That window had once been her view. The silence